Question 3. Construct but do not evaluate an expression for the length of y equals to arcsine square root x minus 1 plus arcsine 1 minus x on its entire domain. So this question asks us to construct its entire domain, which means we just need to find the lower bound A at here and the upper bound B at here. But we do not need to calculate the result. We do not need to find the exact length of this curve. We just need to find its domain, its entire domain. So to find its entire domain, we first need to find the domain of the first part here, this one, and then we need to find the domain of the next part, and we combine these the domain of these two parts together and to see what's its this curve's entire domain. What is its entire domain? So first we need to find the domain of the first part. So for arcsine square root x minus 1, we know that arcsine x x is smaller than and equals to 1 and bigger than and equals to minus 1. So at here we have arcsine sine square root x minus 1. So we just change this x into square root x minus 1. So x here is smaller than and equals to 1 and bigger than and equals to minus 1. So square root x minus 1 at here should be also square root x minus 1 smaller than and equals to 1 and bigger than and equals to minus 1. So we have square root x minus 1 smaller than and equals to 1 and bigger than and equals to minus 1. And we also know that square root of something must be bigger than 0. And square root of something, here it is square root of x minus 1 must bigger than 0, already satisfy the condition that square root x minus 1 bigger than and bigger than and equals to minus 1. So this at here already satisfy square root x minus 1 bigger than and equals to 0, already satisfies square root x minus 1 bigger than and equals to minus 1. Because if square root x minus 1 is bigger than and equals to 0, it must be that square root x minus 1 is also bigger than and equals to minus 1. So we just need to take this. So we just need to take square root x minus 1 bigger than and equals to 0 as our domain. We just need to take this as our domain at here. instead of square root x minus 1 bigger than and equals to minus 1, because square root x minus 1 bigger than and equal to 0 already satisfy square root x minus 1 bigger than and equals to minus 1. So we have the new domain for arcsine square root x minus 1. So the new domain is square root x square root x minus 1 bigger than and equals to 0 and smaller than and equals to 1. So let's solve this inequality here. We get this. So for 1, we take square on both sides, and we get x minus 1 smaller than 1 and x smaller than and equals to 1, and x is smaller than and equals to 2. For 2, we also take square on both sides, so we get x minus 1 bigger than and equals to 0 and x bigger than and equals to 1. So the domain for arcsine square root x minus 1 is x smaller than and equals to 2 and x bigger than and equals to 0 and equals to 1. So this here is the domain for the first part, and it's the domain for the first part. And now we need to calculate the domain for the second part here. So let's do it. Okay. So we for arcsine 1 minus x, what is its domain? So we know that arcsine x has domain x minus x smaller than and equals to 1 and bigger than and greater than and equals to minus 1. So for arcsine 1 or 1 minus x, so we just change x here into 1 minus x here. Since x is smaller than and equals to 1 and bigger than and equals to minus 1, 1 minus x should be also smaller than and equals to 1 and bigger than and equals to minus 1. So 1 minus x is smaller than and equals to 1 and bigger than and equals to minus 1. So let's solve this inequality here. So for first one, 1 minus x smaller than 1. So minus x smaller than 1 minus 1. So minus x smaller than 0. And we need to change the sign. So we need to change this negative sign to plus sign. So we need to change this sign also. We need to change smaller than and equals to equal to greater than and equal. So x is greater than equal to 0. And for 2, 1 minus x greater than and equals to 0, so equals to -1. I just copy this down. So minus x greater than and equals to -1 minus 1, -1 minus 1. So minus x greater than and equals to -2. It gives us x. We need to change the sign and change greater to smaller and equal. So x smaller and equals to 2. Okay, so now we get x. So now we get here this one, x, and this one. So x smaller than 2 and equals to 2 and greater than 0 and equals to 0 is the domain of arcsine 1 minus 6. And let's see the domain of the first part and we compare them. So the domain of the first part is okay, so okay, so for this curve at here, we need to find its entire domain, and now we already find that the domain for the first part is x smaller than and equals to 2 and greater than and equals to 1, and for the second part here, we find that its domain is x is smaller than and equals to 2 and greater than and equals to 1 and 0. So let's say that this domain at here, which is x is greater than and equals to 0, already satisfy the domain at here, which is x is greater than and equals to 0. So this domain at here, x is greater than and equals to 1, already satisfies this domain at here, x is equal to and greater than 0. Why? Because if x is greater than and equals to 1, it must be that x is also greater than and equals to 0. So we just need to take x bigger than and equals to 1 instead of x is greater than and equals to 0. So yeah, for this domain, it is x is greater than and equals to 1 and smaller than and equals to 2, and this domain is this one here. So for this, the second part of the curve, if it uses for the second part of the curve arcsine 1 minus x, it is also acceptable for it to use the domain, this domain here, to use x is greater than 1 equal to 1, smaller than and equals to 2. So we just need to choose x is greater than and equals